How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Excellent. Nice to meet you. I appreciate you
Nice to
taking a
meet
minute out.
Oh, I didn't hear what you said.
I appreciate you taking a minute out today.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I just love to just go on different podcasts and then it's a form of fellowship for me.
Yes.
Just because I get to meet, people I would otherwise not meet
Yeah.
in my commute to work. And so I'm very excited that you gave me this opportunity to speak to you today for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've always said that podcasting is a modern version of therapy. It's a way for us to understand how more alike we are than we're disalike, especially in this very polarized world we live in. So it's
Absolutely.
it's a wonderful thing. Where are you coming out of?
So I'm coming out of Maryland,
Okay.
but I'm sort of like a global nomad. I've been around.
All
I've lived
right.
in different places. Yes.
We'll get into all of that. So thank you again. And I want to begin our conversation with surviving the last 3.5 years or so with the pandemic. How did you
Mhm.
get through it? And how did it change you now that we have kind of entered this post-pandemic era?
I would say that to be frankly honest with you, I never really bought into this whole, after the COVID pandemic, there would be a sort of new normal.
Yeah.
I think if nothing else, the pandemic drastically changed the way that I live my life. But most importantly, reminded me not to take anything for granted, especially the relationships that we have built, that I have built, over the course of my life. And so I think that in a way, I think in terms of global consciousness wise, I think people have learned to sort of take everything with a grain of salt, live day by day, and really not take anything for granted. I think post pandemic, um, my life, I mean, again, like we were all stuck in like a little bubble, if you will. So for me, I don't think that I think if anything else, like what changed is that it made me want to go out more. If I was a hermit before, now I really wanted to know if there was anything that was missing out after the pandemic that I was not able to get through because we were on lockdown. So
What is that? It's called FOMO, the fear of missing out. Is that's kind of a part of, yeah.
it's the FOMO. The
Yeah.
FOMO is real.
Uh-huh. I get it. I get it. And I think it's heightened with our whole like addiction to social media. I think we see things and we just want to be more involved more than ever, seems like.
We
Yeah.
want to be more involved, and at the same time, I would caution to say that social media does not give the full picture.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy to just get lost in the maze
Yeah.
because when you see a picture, you see people smiling, you thinking, oh, everything is great. And I know in my case, it was not until after the pandemic I was, finding out that some people were getting divorced or some people were forced to live together for some time, until
Yeah.
after the pandemic. And I just don't think that I think social media has its purpose in terms of bringing people together and it allows people to promote their businesses and have fellowship like we're having right now with other people. But we also have to take into account that sometimes not only does it not give you the full story, but some people may tort stories as well,
Yeah. Yeah.
to paint a picture that's not there. And that adds to the anxiety and the stress that people are already feeling or probably still feeling post pandemic.
Yeah. It's that whole catfishing thing. Uh,
Yes.
yeah. So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do for a living. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders. It's career day. And one of the kids says, "What do you do for a living?" How do you answer them?
I would say that I just help people write their books.
Okay.
I help people. um I'm trying to think like as a third grader, like how I would say like all of these words like coming at me, like fine tune, like again, like not trying to get too deep in the technicals, details, but I help people write their books. I give them advice on how they can make their content stronger. I also help them when they're stuck, while they're writing, whether it's trying to convey their feelings through a character, or again, trying to map out, again, just the sequence, right? The sequence of events within a story. But my job is not just doing that. I mean, anything that relates to writing, I provide help with that.
And we all need that for sure. I know I've needed a really good editor all the years because I can literally look at something and be like, all right, it's fine, it's good. And I'll just have
Yes.
all the little red marks all over it because we all think different. There's things that we have lanes that we all exist in,
Yes.
you know?
We have the different lanes, and I think also too what has helped me when I work with my clients is to have them read whatever they've shared with me, with
Yeah.
someone in their family, someone in their environment, because everyone is going to take in the information differently.
Hmm.
Everyone is going to interpret your words differently. And I think like the biggest fear that some of them usually have is, I don't want people to, I don't want people to judge me. I don't want people to know that I'm referring to something that actually happened in real life. And unfortunately, that's not something that people can get away from
Yeah.
when you're writing. Once you get into this business of writing, you're subject to judgment. You're
Yeah.
subject to people either liking your content or not liking your content. But this is what brings me joy. I love to disseminate information. I love to um kind of add value to the knowledge base. I think
Yeah.
that's the whole point of me getting a doctorate degree now. Like part of my training is learning to, share information in layman terms, and really trying to make sure that I'm not regurgitating something that's already been done before, but really adding to they always talk to you about that, adding value to the knowledge
Yeah.
base, right?
Yeah. For sure. So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
When I was in the 3rd grade, oh, do we even have enough time to talk about this? Because I
Right.
wanted
That's
to
the
be many
question.
things. I wanted to be many things, Joe.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to be a pediatrician. That's the first thing. I wanted to be a pediatrician. And at a certain point, I sort of like, because I love Star Wars, I'm a huge Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
I wanted to be an astronaut. I mean, I wanted to be many, many things.
Awesome. That's a good thing. That's a
Yes.
good
But
thing.
Joe, but what about you? What did you want to be?
I saw when I was a child of the 80s, so I grew up watching Chips and I thought I was going to be a motorcycle cop, you know.
Oh,
And then I think I saw the actual show cops later in life and said,
oh.
I don't know about this.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, I'm a 90s person.
Yeah.
And so I saw like the remnants. I mean, it was kind of dwindling and they were going, I think they shut it down at some point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But and I also baseball player too, but I was 4'11" in high school. There was no way I just wasn't going to be an athlete. But that the beauty of it is, and I tell my stepdaughter this, who's a teenager,
Hmm.
is that the one thing that no one can take away from you are your dreams, no matter how bad people can be, or no matter what happens with friendships that may not work out. At the end of the day, you have a
Hmm.
dream and that's your job to protect it. And that's the one thing that you can always have that no one can mess with.
Yes, I agree with you. And actually, I'm going through this right now. And I think it's so important to sort of I usually say to block out the noise and to also understand that everything happens for a reason. Um and that anything that is meant to be in your life will be in your life. So even for me right now, as I'm going through my journey, my doctoral journey, it's a transition. And just like every transition, some people will stay and some people will leave. But I think what's most important, and this is something that I always have to remind myself, is not to be upset when people leave. I mean, you can feel the feelings. It will hurt, depending on the nature of the relationship you have with that person.
Yep.
But just know that, just remember the lessons that you've learned. Remember the good times. Because I think sometimes, and this is what social media does sometimes, it's like, you see people have like 3,000 followers, and you're thinking, okay, are these like, does this person have 3,000 friends? Most likely not.
Yeah.
But we equate, I really value quality over quantity. I may have 2 or 3 friends, but I know I can count on these friends through the good and through the bad.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm so glad that you said that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Protect it like your life depends on it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's go back to the beginnings of your life. Where were you born and raised, and how did these seeds of wanting to be a writer and a reader come in?
So I was born in the States. I was born in Florida, but I grew up in Haiti, because the creator of my family is from Haiti, Martinique, and France. And to be honest with you, I think I stumbled on writing during my college years. I mean, I love to read. I'm an avid reader. I think my parents did a great job just making sure that I had a strong foundation, like of literature, like at a very young age. But writing, to be honest with you, it's something that, contrary to popular belief, like I've been working on my writing skills like since I was in elementary school. I didn't think at first that I was a good writer, but I think, and this is something I always share with my clients, is that writing is sort of like a muscle that you train. I don't, it's the same concept with being a leader. People will say that some leaders are born, but there are some people where you have to put them in a specific situation for you to see what they're made of too. And so I stumbled on writing during my college years, as I was, again, helping other people, in terms of editing their work and what have you. One of my friends actually told me, that was way back when, she said, Venchele, you should look into building a business around it. And you're in college. I was literally living semester by semester. I wasn't thinking about building a business. I mean, that was not even a thought. But then the conversation kept coming up, like through different people. Like, again, when I joined the Peace Corps, after I came back from the Peace Corps, like even my immediate boss said that to me. And I said, you know what? Maybe there is some truth to this. Let me just put myself out there and see where I land. I mean, worst case scenario, things don't pan out, and I can always say I tried, but I'm not gonna know unless I take the first step. And I think that's what happened.
Yeah.
Um, I decided to jump in. Typically people, before they build a business, they will write a business plan, right? So I did my market research and all of that. But I did something different. I just jumped right in.
Yeah.
And then I wrote that business plan because I wanted to see, okay, based on what I've researched, what is working,
Yeah.
who is my ideal client, what is gonna be my purpose, my value add to their lives, and then what's not working.
Yeah.
And then reflect on these moments and what I could do different next time. So that's how I went about it.
Yeah.
Um, and so I hope that answers your question,
It
but that's
does.
how I stumbled on writing.
No, no,
It's
no.
not something that I woke up one day and said, "Oh, I'm just gonna go and build a business
Yeah.
on writing." So
Yeah.
yeah.
I dig it. So, what was the first book that you read that you loved that made you want to read more or write at some point?
That is a great question. Trying to sift through all these books, I would say the book that had a profound impact on me was The Little Prince.
Yeah,
The Little Prince. And then there was another book. I know you just said one book, but there's
that's
another
fine.
book that's called The Alchemist by
Yeah.
Paulo Coelho.
Oh, yeah. It's a great book.
Those were two books that really changed my life in terms of how writing can not only transport you to new destinations, but kind of helped you, shape an horizon. And I
Yeah.
don't know what that horizon was for
Yeah.
me at the time, but it really resonated with me. And actually, it's because of after I read The Alchemist, that I decided to travel to Senegal, West Africa, and spend 3 years there in a rural village, in a rural community with no running water, no electricity, doing community health work.
Wow.
And Yes, those two, The Little Prince and The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
So who's been a hero for you in your life?
I think it depends on how you define hero. How are you defining hero, Joe?
Somebody that you look up to, that inspires you, that makes you want to be better.
I would definitely say that my hero has always been my father, because he was the first man in my life. the first, the first person who saw me at my very best and at my very worst. And, to this day, we have a very strong relationship. We talk almost every day. He's someone who truly vouches for me. So even besides what you said about, fighting for your dreams, this is also someone I would fight for,
Yeah.
for the rest of my life, because he's always been there. People may have left for whatever reason in my life, because again, due to these transitions, but he's always been constant.
Yeah.
And his advice, I mean, to be honest with you, has led me to this moment, where I am able to I'm able to talk to other people, and try to see what can I do? Like, how can I make this world a little bit better than how I left it? And even as I'm speaking to right now, I know it's a privilege too for me to even say that, because it depends. Some people don't have the best of relationships with their families, or with a father or a mother. Um, but I don't take that relationship for granted,
Yeah.
because I know that this thing called life goes by fast.
Yeah.
And so this, I would say, he is my hero.
Yeah.
He has been and will always be my hero,
That's
because he's
wonderful.
always been there. He knows things that most, even your audience, doesn't know about me, and and I think the most important thing too, when we're talking about a hero, um I wouldn't want a hero who tells me what I want to hear,
Yeah.
because there are these types of relationships. He is the type of hero who has also told me things that I did not want to hear, but that I needed to hear in order to grow.
Yeah.
And I think, like, even as I'm reflecting on what you're sharing with me, um, that's what I would want in my life. People who continue to help me grow.
Yeah. So if you could meet one person alive on the planet right now and spend some time with them, who would it be?
Ah, oh, these questions are good. um, who would it be? Oh, no, I probably will have to circle back. We probably will have to circle back on this question. But
Okay.
the person that comes to mind, oh, I mean, he's no longer with us. He is with the ancestors. It would have been Nelson Mandela,
Yeah.
because of his, he didn't just talk about peace, but he walked that walk
Yeah.
too. And I think that's the toughest thing, because people can put in a good, they can put on a good game, but
Yeah.
when it's time to implement, when it's time to
Hmm.
show it, um, many are invited, but few are chosen.
Yeah.
I'll just say that.
Yeah.
So I would spend, if I had the chance to spend a day, it would have been with Nelson Mandela,
Yeah.
because he was radical. He was radical about, um, fighting for peace and justice.
Yeah.
And this is part of my current work, really, not necessarily, well, I would want to fight for peace, but in my case is really fighting to, for people to have quality of healthcare wherever you are. And that in of itself it's a tall order.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So what is the motivation for you every day to get up and to do the work that you want to do, to fulfill what you want to help people?
my motivation is, um sometimes, we can complain. We can say how life is hard and work is hard, and that's true. But I think that when I think about people missing out on what I could bring to the table, I think that's what motivates me to get up every day.
Yeah.
Because, like they always tell you that the cemetery is like the largest library in the world, because there you'll find people who, died without having fulfilled their dreams. You have just a wealth of knowledge there
Yeah.
that was not tapped into. And it's the same thing for me. Like I just think that while I'm alive and I'm able to breathe, um I want to make sure that I am constantly working on my vision and my mission to make this place a little bit better. And that's what makes me get up every day,
Yeah.
because I figured I cannot wait for someone to do what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So and I'm saying this to you, like, again, like, so confidently, but trust me, there are some times you wake up in the morning and you think it to yourself, but why?
Yeah. Right.
Why? Why, again, like, I don't feel like doing this today. But then when you take a step back, you remove the emotion out of it and you see it for what it is. You have to just do like what Toni Morrison said once. He said, if you see something that needs to be done and you don't see anyone else doing it, then go ahead and start it yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to do.
So what are you the proudest of everything you've done and overcome and become in your life? What are you the proudest of?
I'm proud that I didn't give up on myself,
Yeah.
because there have been many challenges along the way. For example, even though I grew up in another country, I had to, come back to the US and finish my studies. And during that period of time, I sort of raised myself, and having to do that, and having to like build a pathway for me, before I even had what I mean, even before I knew what a mentor was.
Yeah.
um and I think that for me, when life got tough, I didn't give up on myself. I still had hope that it would bring me to an expected end. I still had hope that there was a purpose to my life, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud that I didn't give up on myself.
Yeah.
Even getting this degree, I think that, again, like, if you had spoken to me, I don't even know, like 12 years ago, it just, again, it was just a thought.
Yeah.
But I still carried on. I still pursued it. I was frustrated with myself at times because, we can be each other's toughest, we can be our own toughest critic, but I didn't give in.
Yeah. So you have this nomadic spirit. You've traveled to quite a few places.
Yeah.
What's been one of the most surprising places, whether it was beautiful or magical, that you've been to?
I would say Italy. Italy, when I spent almost a year in Europe, I had a chance to study abroad in Spain. And I had, again, I was traveling pretty much every weekend, but I would say Italy was the most beautiful place that I have visited and that I intend to visit. I'm giving myself that present
Yeah.
after I graduate to go back to, because it resonates with my artistry, which is writing for me.
Yeah.
But I love art, and I love like what you can learn from like looking at, a portrait.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
It's amazing. I've been there several times. I went and visited a pen pal that I was writing in high school, and they owned a restaurant. And I went to Rome, and I had no
yeah.
idea what Rome was going to do, and it blew me away. Like the
Mm-hmm.
antiquity and the art. I went into the Vatican and walked to the
Yes.
Sistine Chapel to see all that. Like, it's the cradle of antiquity. I mean, we think
Yes.
things are old here. When you go over there, you realize we're children, we're toddlers.
Yes.
Crazy.
Yeah, very, very crazy.
But it's magical too. The food's great. Everybody's happy. There's just this, there's just a bounce. And every time I talk to people about Europe, they always say Italy. So it's funny you say that, you know? So
Yes. And then also too, it caters to everyone, regardless of your religious faith. You
yeah,
don't necessarily have to be a Roman Catholic to really enjoy that city.
yeah,
But yes, no, it is a magical city
it
for
is.
sure. You've been to the Sistine Chapel. Have you been to, there was this museum that I went to, and it had, I think, sculptures from Bernini. I think it's called the Borghese Museum.
I think so. I think I did dip in there. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But the thing about when you're over there, there's just everything. There's so much, and you almost
Yes.
lose track, you know. And this was back when I had 35 millimeter film. I wrote everything handwritten in a book. I kept a journal. It was in the
Yes.
good old days. So, you know, I had to maximize those 30 rolls I had for like 8 days. I'd be very careful, you know, but yeah, it's pretty amazing. You know, everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you ultimately run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Oof. Um, if I had to say, I think for me, as soon as you said that question, I immediately pivoted to thinking of looking at myself through the eyes of the people I'm serving, because I think that's also part of leadership. Because I can sit here and say I'm a gregarious leader and all of that, but if the people you're serving don't think that, then that limits you in a way. And I think for me, if I think about who I am, I'm someone who has grit. I'm someone who has grit. I'm someone who speaks her truth no matter what. You know, I don't make any excuses for it. And I'm someone who is a great friend. If I had to sum up again, you know, what people have shared about me, that's what I would say.
Yeah,
And I don't give up on people,
yeah,
because I know how it feels like when someone gives up on you. So
yeah,
I have made it my life's mission to do unto others what I would want to be done unto me. I mean, don't get me wrong. Some people may not be, people will only be able to give you in the same manner that they've given to themselves. But I make it my business to be the type of person I wish someone had been to me in my teenage years.
yeah, yeah. Well said. So if anyone out there wants to hire you, find out more about you, look into your world, reach out, how do they do that?
Yes. So people can find me on LinkedIn, just using my name, Venchele Sendik, on Instagram, you know, by typing Pathway Coach Writing or my name. And then going through my website, you know, www.pathwaycoachwriting.com. So that's where people can find me. But again, I look forward to seeing them in person too.
Yeah, especially after all of this time that we've lived through.
uh,
This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your story. Thank you for your passion. This has been great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And before you go, say your name again. I,
It's it's Venchele Sendik.
I love it. I'm so glad I asked. I never want to assume, and you know that writing. You have to fact check everything.
I know.
Thank you so much. Best of luck. Have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you.
Take care. See you later. Bye bye.